Hi, Jim. Hi, Tony. Oh. Okay, folks, I've got 4:30, but I'm going to wait just a minute or two if that's okay to see if we get a few more folks signing in. Hello, Danny. Say hi to Jack, everybody. Down. Down. Come on, Danny. Okay, friends, listen, I really appreciate everybody taking the opportunity to join me today with this issue we got going on in our country, whether we agree with all the actions or not. It is everybody's right to feel safe. And so not having meetings and not having the ability to go door to door becomes a bit of a challenge. So I wanted to come on Facebook Live and other platforms and give you an opportunity to ask me questions, but also give me an opportunity to talk to you. So if you have a question, please feel free to type it in and I'll do my best to keep up with them and try to answer them. While I'm waiting for one, we'll start with a little bit of an introduction, just so that my friends here in Iowa District 3 understand my background and how I ended up in Iowa. My family, my mother and father are from the East Coast. They both grew up in New York. Dad joined the Army and raised a family in the Army. I have 4 siblings that are, and all 5 of us were born in a different state. My parents are now in Maryland, and I've got, family pretty much spread out. I met my wife in Maryland 36 years ago, and we raised 3 children through our military career. They are all adults now. One of them is actually here in Iowa, at least for the short term, and one is in Georgia, and one is in Arizona. They're great Americans, and they're all self-sufficient, conservative-minded folks that are as concerned as many of you are with what's happening with our country. And we'll talk more about it, but that's why I've decided to make this run. A little bit about my military background. I enlisted in the Army Reserves in 1981, and I was also in the Reserve Officers Training Corps at the same time. and was stationed out of Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Spent 3 years in that reserve unit and did a lot of maneuvers. It's pretty interesting, even though it's very limited at the Gettysburg battlefield. It's pretty interesting being able to go out there with your unit and look at the battlefield from the perspective of a bunch of soldiers in a unit. Then I was commissioned in 1944 as an officer, 1984 as an officer, went on active duty, spent 32 years in uniform as an infantry officer. My entire career is in the infantry. Most of it spent in brigade-size units and below, either in deployable units or in training units. I have been deployed to combat. I usually get asked that question. I'm a Ranger qualified, master parachutist. You can look at my bio and see all the stuff that I did in the Army. But I think it is important to note for you that I commanded at the battalion level in combat, which is an infantry organization of about 1,000 men. And then I commanded at the brigade level in a training organization. And I also went from that job to here in Iowa, there on the east side of Iowa at the Rock Island Arsenal, where there's a 3-star general officer headquarters that's responsible for training readiness for the National Guard and the reserves across the continental United States. And I was the operations officer and then the chief of staff for that organization. And I retired from uniform and was brought back on as a civilian and worked for a few years as a civilian human resource director. While also on active duty, I served in the Pentagon on the Joint Staff, and I point those positions out to you so that you can see my background has strategic level thinking, strategic level problem solving experience. When I did retire, my wife and I were looking around at where we wanted to go, where we should go. We looked at where all our family is, but as you saw up front, family's very spread out, and so we decided, both because of employment and because we just enjoyed Iowa so much, we decided to stay. And over time, we decided that we are now permanent residents of Iowa. And so you'll see my tagline on my website and on other documents. I like to say that I'm American by birth, a soldier by profession, and an Iowan by choice. And so last year we were looking at the politics of the day. We were visiting with some friends of ours, and we were complaining about, like many of us do, we were complaining about the direction of the country. We were complaining about the leftward shift of our Democratic Party, the progressive politicians that are in the Republican Party, the loss of Republican seats, specifically in Iowa, to very left-leaning liberal Democrats. And we hatched a good idea that I should run for office. And after praying on it and after thinking about it for a few weeks, I called my buddy up, said, "Hey, I think I'm going to do this," and he agreed. He's on the team. He's actually my campaign director. My wife was on board, was sure that I was going to make that decision. Kind of said, "Well, I've been expecting you to say that." So, I decided that I should do something about what I see in politics today, as opposed to just sitting around the kitchen table and complaining about it. I do consider myself a problem solver. I spent a lifetime in problem solving within the military at small levels and at higher levels, writing policy to create the atmosphere for soldiers to operate under, living under those policies. And so sorry, I'm reading a question that stopped me for a second. Hi, Wayne. So if I'm going to do something about it, what I want to start with is getting a an actual conservative, a true conservative, a non-establishment, non-politician, non-political minded, non-politician into this office and deliver